Hello guys, and welcome to the new series chronicling my efforts to come up with a better audio and visual setup. This installment we're trying keeping my microphone on the other side of my laptop so you don't hear the sound of the fan. Hopefully it will sound better. The only trouble is I always feel like I slightly turn this way because the majority of my room is in this direction. Okay, let's see. I don't like that at all. Hopefully you can hear me fine. We're going to be talking. I'm going to put Stefan Molyneux in the title, even though kind of the points I'm going to make about Stefan Molyneux are points that have already been made before. Also, I'm not going to show any of Stefan Molyneux's video in this just because I can't be bothered. But what I'm actually kind of the main substance of this video is actually going to be nothing to do with Stefan Molyneux, but I'm using Stefan Molyneux as a segue, and also I think I get more views when I put someone's name in the title. Yeah, that's what's happening now. Also, interestingly enough, there's a lot of things going on because this thing that I will respond to partially is also the thing that was at the tail end or the beginning, I forget, of the first video I responded to, and I didn't respond to it via video, I responded to it via essay. And if you haven't seen that, it doesn't really matter. I will probably do something where I make a loose response based on the essay at some point, just because I'm pretty sure no one wants to read an essay. I mean, who would, when you can listen to me and watch me talk about the substance of the essay? But he was talking about rules, social justice theory, and what I responded to. Whereas this time he's, in the earlier point in the video, he's talking about something else. So, with all that out of the way, I'll begin. So Stefan Molyneux attempts to demonstrate that we have no positive moral obligations. And his argument for why we have no positive moral obligations basically takes the structure. Premise one, the opposite of virtue is vice. You might say the opposite of virtue is evil. I'm going to go for the opposite of virtue is evil just because evil is an easier word to use. So the opposite of virtue is evil. I think we can all agree on that. Premise two, the opposite of giving is not giving. Premise three, giving is a virtue. Premise four, somebody who is in a coma cannot give, they are in a state of not giving. Premise 5, therefore someone in a coma is evil. Premise 6, it is ridiculous to say that someone is evil simply by virtue of the fact that they're in a coma. So conclusion, we can't have, or it can't be considered a moral obligation that we give to people. So it would be Stefan Molyneux's argument against charity being a virtue. Now, you might have noticed what's wrong with this argument, and it's that there's a difference between virtue and negation. And the example I would give for this is that the opposite to black is white, the opposite to black isn't blue, and yet blue isn't black. So, according to Stefan Molyneux's definition, the opposite to giving is not giving, which means that what I'm doing right now is, according to Stefan Molyneux, the opposite to giving, because I'm not giving anything right now. You know, I'm not anything physical, at least. So it's a very broad definition. Yeah, he's conflating not giving, which would include basically everything that isn't giving, with the opposite of giving, and the opposite of giving is taking. And like I say, the best way to understand that is the opposite of white is black, and grey and blue and green and yellow would all be considered not white, but that wouldn't mean that they're the opposite of white. So his premise is flawed. So already his argument that there are no positive moral obligations doesn't work. However, he's called out on an implication of his argument that all positive moral obligations don't exist. Also, another point I should bring up, if the opposite of, if not giving is evil, then that means that saving 1,000 orphans from a house fire is immoral because you aren't giving, or evil because you aren't giving. I think we can all agree that's a ridiculous conclusion, and it demonstrates why the premise is completely ridiculous. But yeah, he says there are no positive moral obligations, and someone says to him, well, if we have no positive moral obligations, then if a child is drowning, and you have the capacity to quite easily rescue that child, do you have a moral obligation to rescue that child? And Stefan Molyneux gives the best, worst response I've ever heard. It's just the most philosophically idiotic thing maybe that he's said. I'm trying to think. He responds by saying, basically going on an angry rant, and he says, if you don't think that people will help other people, test it. And he says, go to a mall and faint. And if people come to help you, then that proves that people will help a drowning child.
But the reality is you need to be an empiricist. If you don't think people will help a man drowning in the river, don't come up with these made-up examples. Go to the mall and pretend to faint. This is another thing that is so retarded. It's so retarded. Be an empiricist. I know you're in academia. So tons of people do. I mean, the whole reason we have a human race, the whole reason we're alive, the whole reason we're having a conversation is because moms don't charge for breast milk. It's embarrassing. I can only assume that this woman doesn't have children. It's ridiculous. Look, don't come up with theoretical situations.
He wasn't asked whether or not people should help a drowning child. He was asked, should people help a drowning child? And that is a completely different question. It's all very well saying, well, it doesn't matter because people will help a drowning child anyway, whether or not I say they should. But this is a criticism of his moral ideas. It's not a criticism of what he believes the world will be like, or what the world would be like in some type of world that he would approve of. The question is, does he think that people should help a drowning child if they see it and they can do it? And I think most people would agree that you should. And obviously, Steph's shitty argument would be, well, if helping a drowning child is good, then the opposite to helping a drowning child, i.e. not helping a drowning child, must be evil. So if you think that helping a drowning child is good, then then every second of your life that you're not helping a drowning child, you're being evil, which demonstrates how shitty his argument is. Obviously, the opposite to helping a drowning child isn't not helping a drowning child. The opposite to helping a drowning child is drowning a child. And I'm going to go out there and say that drowning a child is evil. Sue me. So, yeah, really bad argument. But I actually wanted to touch on this idea of my ethical arguments are okay because my ethical arguments are irrelevant. Because we were talking about rules. I've gone full circle a bit here. We were talking about rules in my seminar. It would have been a while ago. And my seminar teacher said something that I really think was wrong. I did have a bit of an argument with him about it. They said that rules believes that if someone, well, obviously, I don't know if you know the rules of social justice argument. If you don't, maybe just for now, look at the essay, which you can find in the description of pretty much the first video I uploaded. But the basic idea is rules social justice argument says that you cannot punish people for pre-existing things they have no control over, i.e. the race or gender or sexuality or economic circumstance. And my seminar teacher said that rules also believed that if someone is really lazy, then that would count as something they have no control over, and therefore people who choose not to work should be given a large amount of money, and I think that's complete bullshit. I've never read anything of rules that implies that being lazy means you should, we should treat being lazy the same way we would treat, say, having a mental illness or being of a different race or gender or something else that can disadvantage people in our modern society. So I thought it was really dumb, and I was like, well, regardless of whether or not rules said it, that's a terrible idea. We shouldn't have an ethical doctrine that says that it is good to give money to people who don't do any work when they can do work, when there is no reason why they shouldn't be doing work and they choose not to. That's a terrible, terrible, horrible idea. And my seminar teacher said, well, the thing is, rules believed that we wouldn't have lazy people who didn't want to work in his ideal society, so it's fine. And I thought, no, it's fucking not. And the analogy I gave, maybe a bit inappropriate in the middle of the seminar, but I said, yeah, if I said that if A does not equal A, i.e. if the laws of identity were violated, laws of identity ceased to exist, it would be moral to shoot up a school. If so, you wake up and this pound coin is no longer a pound coin, then you can go out and shoot up a school. And someone walked up to me and they said, well, that's absolutely horrific. How can you condone shooting up a school? And I say, well, I'm condoning shooting up a school, but I don't believe that the law of identity will ever cease to exist, and therefore my doctrine isn't immoral. And you think, if your defense of your ethical idea is that your ethical idea will never actually apply, then you are conceding the point that it is not an ethical idea. If your defense of the claim that we should give money to people who choose not to work simply because they're lazy is that there won't be any people who choose not to work simply because they're lazy, then your ethical idea is clearly really shit, because your only defense of it is that it would never apply. And this obviously also applies to Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux says that it is you don't have to save a drowning child, and his defense he gives of this is, well, it doesn't matter that I say this because people will help drowning children anyway. And you think, no, if, like I say, if your only defense of your ethical doctrine is that your ethical doctrine will never actually apply due to the reality of how the world works, then it's not an ethical idea. So yeah, generally speaking, it's not good to have ethical ideas that, by your own admission, will never actually apply. And if you've got any ethical ideas which you hold to and your justification for them is, well, they're never going to actually apply in reality, then you should probably just get rid of those ethical ideas. And like I say, if it's okay for you to say that we have no moral obligation to help a child because people will help children anyway, and therefore the idea doesn't apply, then you must also, I think, be conceding the point that it is moral for me to say that it is okay to shoot up a school if the law of identity no longer applies, based on the idea that the law of identity could never cease to apply. It's a very bad argument. And thank you for watching, and goodbye. And I might not upload a video for a while because I sort of had loads in my head while I was waiting for the microphone, and I don't know what I'm going to do next. Might respond to a video. We'll see how it goes. Thank you. Bye.
I know you're studying philosophy in academia, God help you, which is an abstraction on top of an abstraction, on top of parasitism, on top of an exploitive uselessness, because you're not actually out here with me in the free market, actually providing philosophical value to people.